Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Samuel, and this is my new channel, We Who Suffer in Silence But Not Alone. Today, I want to share with you a personally deep story, which was my struggle through Lyme disease, the road to my diagnosis, and how it all turned into a journey of healing. If you're someone who's felt lost in the healthcare system, or if you've ever been dismissed by medical professionals, this video is for you. I started this channel because when I first was diagnosed with my chronic illnesses, I felt alone. I felt like nobody had really gone through what I went through, and that my situation was so unique to me that I was on an island. Little would I know that going forward, there were a plethora of people who went through what I went through. And this is the older me wishing I could reach out to the younger me and let myself know that there is a community of people out there. There are things you can do to feel better. If one doctor or one authority figure in health says one thing, it's not the end all be all. This is my journey. This is my story. And for the most part, I'm going to tell these in a storytelling format because I'm weird. You'll find that out. I have no idea what to do on YouTube or how to do it. I'm brand new to this. I'm just going to tell my story and hope that you out there, the viewers, can relate. So with me, it all started when I was just 19 years old. I experienced what would become my first massive panic attack. I didn't know it would be a prelude to something much bigger than Lyme disease. I remember feeling a wave of panic just after I'd eaten my evening meal. There was confusion, not knowing what was happening to my body. Before any of this happened, I was completely healthy. I've never had anxiety at that point, depression at that point. No real medical issues. So over the next 9 years, this moment would be the start of a long and painful journey, marked by severe neglect from the allopathic community. I remember going to countless doctors, and I'm sure a lot of you out there can relate. You're desperate for answers, but instead of being treated like a patient, I was often dismissed and sometimes even laughed at. I heard terms like med hunting or hypochondriac. All these thrown around because I didn't fit the conventional mold of illness. I was consistently passing the basic tests, the CBC, the C-reactive protein, the metabolic panel test, the iron test. But I knew in my head something was clearly wrong. I felt terrible. If you're feeling terrible and somebody tells you you feel good, don't believe them. Don't listen to them. Listen to your own body and what your instincts are telling you. They simply ignored my pleas for help, instead prescribed benzodiazepines, which are basically a mild tranquilizer. Benzodiazepines work by inhibiting the GABA receptors in your brain to calm down your autonomic nervous system, your heartbeat, and things of that nature, to create a sense of euphoria. That's what they gave me instead of actually looking into my issues. I was 19 years old back then. I'm 33 now. I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I was just a scared 19-year-old kid. And at that time, we were taught to appeal to authority, especially when it comes to doctors. I mean, after all, they'd taken the Hippocratic Oath. As someone with limited medical knowledge at that time, why would I question the judgment? That was my thought process, and it might be a lot of your thought processes. Why would we, who have no medical knowledge, question the medical expertise of these doctors who went to school for it? What do I know versus what do they know? And like many of you, I didn't know how to read peer-reviewed medical literature at that time. I just kind of went by what they said. My health continued to decline. From the ages of 19 to 25, I faced increased episodes of panic attacks, general malaise, and heart palpitations. Post-exertion malaise, which is essentially using your body, and then a day or two, you start feeling like you have the flu without actually having the flu. That was a nice one to try to understand for a very, very long time. Meanwhile, all the blood tests that I would take at that time would come back normal. So I felt like I was losing control. just battling illnesses that technically weren't illnesses, but that I felt in my heart were illnesses, in my soul was illnesses. It really felt isolating. Those who suffer in silence were often taught to trust the system, to let doctors take the lead. But this experience unfortunately led me to a breaking point. It wasn't until I found a naturopathic doctor in my local area that I was on the verge of giving up. What else could I do? I've been told for the last 5, 6 years that there was nothing wrong with me. It was just in my head. I was just crazy. But when I went into this naturopathic office, I discovered there was a whole other side to this medical equation. A side that had different perspectives, different modalities on how to treat the human body, new tests, which also gave a sense of hope. See, what I didn't know back then that I know now is there's allopathic medicine and then there's chronic illness type of medicine. Allopathic medicine, or what some people call hero medicine, is very good at addressing acute issues. You have a heart attack, you have some contusions, you broke some bones, you need surgery. Allopathic medicine is fantastic for that and should not be looked down on for that. I've used allopathic medicine my whole life and it's helped me for a lot of things. But when your illnesses become chronic, that is when I've noticed in my own personal experience that allopathic medicine falls short. When you start having chronic illnesses like arthritis or colitis, irritable bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue, dysautonomia. Dysautonomia is a dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. This is where you see allopathic medicine fall short. A lot of the treatment, and that's a purposely used word, is just on symptom management, but not necessarily on how do we cure this thing. Also, people with chronic migraines, pop Advil to the day you die, right? That being said, I just remember that first appointment being really tough. I went in there ready to battle because in all my appointments up until that point, I've had to really fight for myself and be my own best advocate. A lot of things we learn as chronic illness sufferers is you have to be your own best advocate. You cannot live in a position of defeat. You will never get to where you need to get to, which is feeling better. So it was intense. I remember I walked in there, I sat with a doctor and said, listen, my voice needs to be heard. I do not want to be silenced during this appointment. I've been ignored. The doctor stopped me and said, I can tell you've been ignored and belittled throughout your whole medical experience. I'm here to help. What can I do to help you in this situation? Let me start by listening. That's the first thing he said, listening. That was the first time a doctor actually said that to me. Now, this doctor, he's a naturopathic doctor, but also an MD, so he had the best of both worlds. I was kind of taken back. Finally, I had somebody who was going to take me seriously on what I was going through and not just write me off as a hypochondriac. After that, I just felt like I had a new lease on life. We ended up having a good conversation and we talked about the path that we were going to go. He told me that I spent a lot of time in the woods. I'm a big woods person. I love being outside. And I also worked at my family's smokehouse. And he asked me, have you ever been tested for Lyme disease? It's the first time I've ever heard of Lyme disease. And I said, obviously, no. We did a test for Lyme disease. The first test we did was called a Western blot test for Lyme disease. The Western blot test has a sensitivity between 60 and 80%. So this means it can also easily underdiagnose individuals, which leaves many people still suffering and unsure why they are. And I remember at the age of 18, 19, before coming into that practice, I did a Western blot test that said I was negative. The Western blot test alone isn't comprehensive. It's much more effective when you combine it with the ELISA test, which checks for the antibodies to specific antigens related to Lyme. And there's also a test called the immunofluorescent assay test, the IFA, which is excellent at picking up co-infections, including those that accompany Lyme disease. So we did these tests and I was able to get a more complete picture, right? which you would think that every single doctor you'd go to would implore these tests, but you'd be wrong. You'd be dead wrong. So after these tests, I was given a diagnosis that made everything click into place. I mean, I found out I had ehrlichiosis, which is a co-infection of Lyme disease. There's Babesia, there's Rocky Mountain spotted fever, ehrlichiosis. The symptoms were finally making sense. What I was going through, what all the doctors said that was just in my head, they started clicking. They started actually validating everything I've been feeling for those 5-6 years. For me, it was fever that would come and go, or feeling like you had a fever without being able to register it on a thermometer. Chills, severe headaches, muscle aches, nausea, diarrhea, loss of appetite, increased general anxiety, some tachycardia, some bradycardia, chest tightness, and the depression. Oh, the sweet depression. I just remember that whole process. I'd call in and just be on the verge of tears and just tell them how they vindicated what I always believed, what people have always told me was in my head that was not real. Little did I know at that time, I had Lyme disease. The Lyme disease came from the chronic use of antibiotics. I was using doxycycline, which is a broadband fluoroquinolone, to treat my pilonidal abscess on my tailbone. And I would get these abscesses about 3 or 4 times a year. Every time I got the abscesses, they'd put me on about 10 days worth of doxycycline. What I didn't know was that the doxycycline was damaging my gut microbiota. Back in the 2010s, gut research wasn't at the pinnacle that it is today. I was taking so much antibiotics that not only did it damage the good bacteria in my gut, it allowed for advantageous negative bacteria to flourish and replicate. I already had Lyme disease that was laying dormant in my immune system that was being put in check by the good bacteria in my gut. As I overused antibiotics without being told to use probiotics, the Lyme disease was able to then go out of control and get haywire. Not only that, taking antibiotics from age 19 to 25 also caused chondral dysfunction within my gut. In the gut, we have a nervous system called the enteric nervous system, which registers digestion and all types of activities that happen in the gut. When your gut becomes in a place of dysbiosis, it sends signals to your brain that something is going on. And so during that something is going on moment, my body started to develop more anxiety and more depression-like symptoms. So it was really just a perfect storm. My immune system was doing its job, and then I used antibiotics to treat something else that made my Lyme disease rear its ugly head. Little did I know that discovering I had Lyme disease was only the beginning of a series of undiagnosed challenges that awaited me. My story, unfortunately, doesn't end here. It's just the start of an ongoing battle for health and understanding. As I would later find out, it was the first step to realizing that I had many other diseases that I'll get to in another video. If you relate to my journey, or if you're fighting your own battles with chronic illness, I implore you to join me on this path of healing. There's so much to uncover about what happened in my next health journey. So please comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. If you want to follow along together, we can shed light on the unseen struggles that many of us face. Remember, you are not alone. We are not alone. Thank you for listening. I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Peace.